Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Today we're going to discuss how the soul maintains the body. And rather than studying verses from the Bhagavad Gita, today we're going to study from two of Srila Prabhupada's purports. And believe me, they are fascinating ones and they are embedded with soul facts. For example, what is the symptom of the soul? How big is the soul? And where in the body is the soul situated? Very relevant questions, and we will get our answers. So the purports we're going to read from are from chapter 2, 17 and 18. We're not going to read the whole purports, but some snippets. So we're going to start, for convenience, with purport to verse 18, because it gives a very good analogy on how the soul maintains the body, and we can understand that principle nicely from this purport. So I will read the verse also, and then a snippet from the purport. The verse goes, "The material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. Therefore fight, O descendant of Bharata." So Srila Prabhupada says, in the Vedanta Sutras, the living entity is qualified as light because he is part and parcel of the Supreme Light. As sunlight maintains the entire universe, so the light of the soul maintains this material body. As soon as the spirit soul is out of this material body, the body begins to decompose. Therefore, it is the spirit soul which maintains the body. So even though the soul is so minute, it is powerful to give life to the entire body, like a spark or a flame that gives light to the entire body. And I think anybody who has seen the dead corpse of a friend or a family member will say that it is so clear when they see the corpse that the person has left the body. At least this is my experience when both my mom and my father passed away. I went to see the corpses and it was so clear, it was just a shell. I could obviously recognize my parent, but the person was not there. The person had left the body. Therefore, many times in Krishna consciousness, almost all the time, we don't say this and that person died. We say that person has left the body, because that's, according to spiritual science, what is happening. So it is the soul that carries the body, not the other way around, that the body carries the soul. Or rather, we are souls that are temporarily trapped in a material body. We are not material bodies with a soul. Now let's move on to purport 217, and we're going to see a lot of interesting facts that Srila Prabhupada shares. So again, we're going to read snippets from the purport, and we start by reading the translation of the verse. So the verse goes, "That which pervades the entire body you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul." Purport. This verse more clearly explains the real nature of the soul, which is spread all over the body. Anyone can understand what is spread all over the body. It is consciousness. Everyone is conscious of the pains and pleasures of the body in part or as a whole. The spreading of consciousness is limited within one's own body. The pains and pleasures of one body are unknown to another. Therefore, each and every body is the embodiment of an individual soul, and the symptom of the soul's presence is perceived as individual consciousness. So here Prabhupada states it clearly that the symptom of the presence of a soul is consciousness. So this is related to the chit energy we were discussing before, or we mentioned that the qualities of the soul are the same qualities as God, and they're known as Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat means eternal, so they are eternal. Chit means they are full of knowledge, they are full of cognizance, and this is their consciousness. And Ananda is full of bliss. So we are pleasure-seeking beings at our essence. We are happy at our essence. But we're going to discuss this a little more in the coming lesson. But the symptom of the soul as consciousness is because of this shit energy. Wherever there is consciousness, we can understand that there is a soul. All species within this universe, they have different material conditionings, which are based on the desires to either enjoy and exploit matter. And this is in accordance with the particular guna, material quality that they have acquired. So these gunas covers the original consciousness. And the gunas, your mentality and desires, they determine, together with your karma, they determine which body you will get. So the faculty of that body you get in whatever species you may be born determines the possibilities for the consciousness to be fully awakened. For example, plant life may be less sentient, they may be more numb in one way compared to animals and humans who have more developed nervous systems. But we should make no mistakes. Every living entity, whether it be a plant or an animal, a human, an extraterrestrial, a demigod, we have the same souls that are parts and parcels of Krishna. Same souls with the qualities of Sat, Chit, Ananda. But in our journey of consciousness, in this material world, we are in different phases, and thus we are playing different roles in different species. According to the Vedic literature, as humans, we have the best opportunities for developing our consciousness, or rather for purifying ourselves so we can go back to our original spiritual consciousness, the consciousness of the soul. This grand possibility other species don't have. Maybe in some special rare case, but generally in other species they don't have. Think about it. Humans, we can make good and bad deeds, for example. Animals cannot do this. They are forced to live according to their instinct. But as humans, we can develop virtues and vices. Animals, maybe one animal can be a little more cuddly and another animal can be a little more aggressive. So maybe to a little extent they have varieties in the virtues and vices, maybe, but to the extent that we humans have, they don't have. And they also don't get karma for their actions. They act on instinct and they don't get karma, but humans get karma, good or bad karma, which then entangle us more because we get the results and then we get affected by that result, and then we get new desires or new thoughts, and then it's a whole mess with karma actually. So what humans have that is even more important than our ability to make good or bad karma is our ability to question life. We mentioned this before. This is Brahma Jigyasa, inquiry into the absolute truth. This is what distinguishes us most from the animals. We can put existential question and we can ask, what is this? What's it all about? Why am I here? What's the purpose of my life? Why am I suffering? What's this thing called death? What happens after death? What happens before birth, etc. So this is a sign of human intelligence, which the faculty of the human body gives us access to. And most important, after having put forth these existential questions, we humans can take up a spiritual practice. A yoga practice. It's called yoga within the Indic context. Maybe in other religions and in other parts of the world it's called something else. But this is universal principles. We can take up spiritual practices such as prayers, meditation, deep contemplation, study of scriptures, selfless work directed to the divine, different rituals on how to worship the divine, etc. So this is a unique opportunity we have as humans, and we should not waste what the wonderful opportunity it is to have a human body. Because if we don't cultivate spiritual consciousness, try to purify our consciousness, and instead we would cultivate animal mentality, it's very likely that in our next birth we will get an animal body. And then we are regressing. And sometimes I know we are, romanticizing animal life. They are so innocent, the birds are just, singing in the nature and they're so free. But actually, animal life means more suffering. It is stated in the scriptures that what characterizes animal life is constant fear. They constantly fearing being eaten by another animal. However cute they may be and how much we may like them, they do suffer more than us humans, and they don't have the same opportunities of evolving and purifying their consciousness as we, the humans, have. So, from this snippet, we got to know that the symptom of the soul is consciousness. Now let's move into our next question that we want to have answer to, and that is, how big is the soul? We're going to read now, continuing the same purport, 217. This soul is described as 1/10,000th part of the upper portion of the hair point in size. The Shvetashvatara Upanishad 5.9 confirms this. Balagra shatta bhagasya satada kalpitasya cha bhago jiva savikyeya sachanantyaya kalpate. When the upper point of a hair is divided into 100 parts, and again each of such parts is further divided into 100 parts, each such part is the measurement of the dimension of the spirit soul. A little further down in the purport, we see Srila Prabhupada shares another Upanishadic verse. This is from the Mundaka Upanishad 3.1.9. And here the measurements of the atomic spirit soul is further explained. Esho nuratma cheta savidatyo yasmin prana panchada samvivesha pranayaschitam sarvamotam prajanam jasmin vishuddhe vibhavati esha atma. The soul is atomic in size and can be perceived by perfect intelligence. The atomic soul is floating in the 5 kinds of air, prana, apana, vyana, samana and udana, is situated within the heart and spreads its influence all over the body of the embodied living entities. When the soul is purified from the contamination of the 5 kinds of material air, its spiritual influence is exhibited. That was the translation to the verse, and Srila Prabhupada says, the Hatha Yoga system is meant for controlling the 5 kinds of air and circling the pure soul by different kinds of sitting postures, not for any material profit, but for liberation of the minute soul from the entanglement of the material atmosphere. From this verse in Mundaka Upanishad, we get to know where the soul is situated. It's situated within the heart and it floats on 5 kinds of air. This is very basic knowledge from Ayurveda and Yoga, that different airs are floating around in the body. So this is called prana, so vayus. So the 5 main vayus is prana, udana, samana, vyana, and apana. And there are also many sub airs, but these are the main, and they have responsibilities for the functions of different organs. Since it's the air element, the body also consists of other elements, which is called doshas. In Ayurvedic science, we have 3 different doshas. So in Vata dosha, it's air and ether. So Vata dosha and these airs, they are responsible for creating movement within the body, and they are assistant in all these functions. For example, prana helps us with respiration, udana with everything that moves up, mental capacities, for example, coughing and these things. Samana, it's situated around the belly, and it helps us with digestion and like this, and the beginning of the bowel movements. Vyana is an air that circulates the whole body. It assists the nervous system, the circulatory blood system, for example. Apana is a downward moving air, so it helps us with elimination of stool, urine, childbirth, menstruation, for example. But the Hatha yogi learns through meditation first how to identify, by looking inward, these different airs, and then also how to manipulate them and control them. So very good Hatha yogi, and Prabhupada explains here that the goal for a Hatha yogi is not to have the summer yoga body or something like that, or just to get a relaxed mind, as we may practice Hatha yoga today, but the deeper goal of a Hatha yogi is to liberate the soul from the entanglement in the body. And they do this by manipulating, controlling these airs. So very good mystical Hatha yogi can choose at the time of death to rise the soul, and they can leave the body by opening the crown chakra. But this requires complete mastery of the airs and maybe also other forces within the body. But this is not the process that Krishna directly recommends, because it's very difficult, and a person who practices may also lose the end goal. So when we study about the yoga system, we're going to go into all these in depth, and it will be very interesting. I also look forward to preparing and recording these lessons. But now we are still on the soul, on Jiv Tattva. So since we are talking about the airs, the different vayus in the body and leaving the body at the time of death, it is said also within the Vedic knowledge, yoga and Ayurveda and the Vedic scriptures, that when the soul leaves the body, it does so through one of the holes in the body. So what holes do we have in the body? We have the eyes, the ears, the nostrils, the mouth. We have our genital. We have our anus. So these are the different gateways that the soul can use when it leaves the body. And in very, very extreme cases with advanced yogis, the soul can also pierce the crown chakra and leave. And it's said a person who leaves the body like that achieves some kind of liberation. So generally it's considered, if a person leaves from the mouth, the nose, or the eyes, or the ears, it's considered more auspicious than if a person leaves from the anus or the genital. That is considered less auspicious. However, a person in Krishna consciousness, and Krishna says this in chapter 8, does not have to worry so much about the time of death, because they have dedicated the whole life to God, so God will help them at the time of death. But still, Krishna will explain also the science of dying in chapter 8. So it's good to know a little bit, but not to worry too much about it, and maybe also not judge too harshly, because at least I am not an expert, but still I want to share some experiences from my life. I attended to a dying person when a person was about to leave the body, and what I saw and my thoughts around it, and also some little speculation. But this is my speculation. Don't take this that it as is the absolute truth. But it's just, we all reflect on what is happening in our lives. So this was quite a big moment for me. I worked for over 10 years in old age home. I used to work in old age home, and then I used to go to India for traveling and studies, and I came back and I worked. So in old age home, it's common that people leave the bodies. So the pensioners, they die all the time, they leave the bodies all the time. But strangely enough, I was never there at the moment when somebody left the body. For 10 years, I have found people dead in the beds. I have been sitting with people who are dying, supporting them. But somehow or other, that moment when the soul left the body, I was never there with somebody. Until I shifted town, and I started to work night shifts in a new old age home. And then suddenly I had the opportunity to be present at 3 times in 1 month when 3 ladies left the bodies. So I can say it's very intimate to assist somebody, or to assist sounds like we're helping them to die, but to support a person who is there on the deathbed. It's a very intimate moment, and I feel actually very honored and blessed that I could be there with these persons. And it looks completely different from person to person when they leave the body. So 2 of the ladies, when they left the bodies, it was just like the breathing got more and more intense and slowed down, and then suddenly it was just like an exhale, and the soul left the body. And one of the lady, actually, I thought she was dead because she didn't breathe for a long time. And then suddenly she was like, and I was, oh my God, you're still here. Like, so I got a bit surprised. And then shortly after that, she took her last breath. But I assume with these 2 ladies that they may have left the bodies through the mouth or the nose, because it was with a kind of peaceful exhale. But one lady, she was also very anxious. You could feel her anxiety. She was like, and I was sitting there, and actually I didn't know her. I was just put there to work that night. So I was sitting there, and I was trying to talk peacefully to her, that you're going to be successful. This is going to go fine. Like this, it will be fine. You will manage this. Like saying these things, because might sound obvious. All of us will manage to die. It will just happen. But I think I was trying to give comfort in that situation. And then I was sitting praying silently within myself for this person. You could see that she was in a lot of discomfort and anxiety. And at one point, her eyes just flipped over they rolled into her head, and they flipped out again. And then she died. Oh my God. It looked like something from a horror movie. I don't want to sound disrespectful, but it looked really, really scary, and I was totally unprepared for that. I mean, obviously I didn't show anything in my face, but I was totally unprepared. That it looked so scary. The eyes just rolled back, and then she stared, and then she died. So, or she left the body. So I later asked my older colleague who I worked with, and she said, no, it happens sometimes that the eyes roll like this. And I have Googled also here on the internet, so it does happen. And I have been thinking, obviously this is only my own reflections and speculation, but maybe it was the rise of prana of the airs that like made her eyes flip over and then look forward again. So it is also common that people passes through at the moment of death, a little bit after. So perhaps this could be an indication that the person has left through the anal, but it doesn't have to be. It can also be just a relaxation of the muscles. But working within palliative care and seeing the happenings when souls leave the bodies, at least made me think about these things. So I wanted to share with you. Take it with a grain of salt, because this is only my thoughts and my speculations. But It is stated clearly in the Vedic literature that the soul lives through one of the whole of the bodies, and the mystical yogi can, at his or her own will, live from the crown chakra. So to conclude this episode on how the soul maintains the body, I want to go back to something we discussed in an earlier episode on how we resist and fear death because it does not feel natural for us, because at the essence of our core, we feel ourselves as eternal beings. So just the notion of dying, it makes us feel very eerie and uncomfortable. So throughout history and still today, many people have tried to cheat death or avoid death in some way or another. So, for example, today maybe rich people, they kind of freeze their DNA or they freeze their corpses, and they hope that somebody can wake them up when science has advanced so much. So they have hope of eternal life, or at least prolonging the life. So, but this is not a new thing. We also have from the spiritual history of India, we have the story of Hiranyakashipu, who is a very famous demon. And he did a lot of austerities to get a boon. So in Himalayas, he did some yogic austerities, and so much that the demigod Brahma, who is the engineer of this universe, he had to approach him and he asked, "You're doing so much austerities, what boon do you wish for?" And Hiranyakashipu, he asked for immortality. And Lord Brahma, who is the most powerful person within this universe, he said, "Sorry, I cannot grant you this because not even I have immortality." This universe is known as Mrityaloka, the abode of death. Nobody has immortality within this universe. And Lord Brahma, he's the engineer of this universe, and he is also the living entity who lives the longest. The creation of the universe starts, or the creation within the universe starts when he's born from the navel of, he's in a lotus. He's born from a lotus in the navel of Vishnu. And when he dies at his 100 years, it's the complete destruction of the universe. So Lord Brahma lives for 311.04 trillion human years. So he lives for a long time, or an extremely long time compared to our lifespans, but he also don't have eternal life. So the demon Hiranyakashipu, he tried to cheat that. Okay, then at least grant me that I will not be killed in the night, not in the day, not inside, not outside, not by an animal, not by a human being, etc. So he tried to safeguard himself, and he became a very powerful dictator, actually, not only of the Earth planet, but he was a dictator within the whole universe. And everybody suffered under his dictatorship. And at the end, Lord Vishnu came himself and killed this demon. And of course, he made it's part of the story that he was killed in the dusk, so it was not in the day and the night. And Lord Krishna, or Lord Vishnu and Krishna, they are the same person, came in the form of an avatar that is half lion, half human. This is called Lord Narasimhadev. So he was not killed by a human, not by an animal. And he was killed, yes, in the doorway between outside and inside. So he kind of, etc. He had some more requirements. Yeah? And Krishna made sure that Lord Brahma did not fail to keep his promise, but he's smarter than the demon. And he killed the demon. And any demon who gets killed by Lord Vishnu also achieves liberation. So it might sound like a bloody horror story. How can this be divine? But it's a long story to this Leela. That actually this demon was a person who lived in the spiritual world. He had to come down to material world. He was cursed. So he could live 6 lives like demigods or 3 lives as demons. So he and his brother, they chose 3 lives as demons because they wanted to go back to Vaikuntha, to their spiritual world, as fast as possible. So it's part of Krishna's Leela, the divine place. But Also, other yogis, they have tried to cheat death. For example, we already talked about how yogis manipulate the life air. So in a scripture, a tantric scripture called Keshari Vidya, it's, for example, explained a method that when a yogi sees the sign that death is approaching, he sees the sign of an imminent death, he hides in a place in the skull where death personified cannot come and take him. So this way he can hide from death. And then when the critical moment is over, he can either continue his own life, or these yogis, they have by mystical power, they can also either take over, possess the body of a deceased person, a dead body, or they can also jump into another person and possess a living person. So this is called cheating death. But actually, this cannot go on forever. Perhaps some yogis can manage this for a few times, but nobody can cheat death. And why, if you're such an elevated yogi, would you run all your life? Run from death, run in this body and that. Why? If you're such an elevated yogi with an elevated consciousness, why not just meet death face to face? Because your consciousness will still be there, your soul will still be there after death. So the real method on how to cheat death is to become transcendental and to realize ourselves as souls, that we don't have to fear death then, and we see it for what it is. It is just a transition of body. It's nothing else. And if we have good consciousness, we have nothing to fear also. It's a continuation of our journey. And this makes a perfect ending for this episode. And it's like a bridge to the next episode, where we will discuss the science of reincarnation and all the technicalities of reincarnation. So I'm looking forward to see you that time.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.